call the meeting to order. We're here this morning at the Van Skyke Mansion in Cohoes, and I think to start, maybe we ask our host, Sandy Cirillo, to provide, maybe give us some context and background on...
About the mansion? Certainly,
yeah,
of course. Yes, the mansion was built in 1735 to 1755. It's that time frame that we're narrowing down. This is where the battles of Saratoga were planned. So you had all of the generals on Van Skyke Island. When you came over Bridge Ave, you came onto Van Skyke Island. During that summer, in July, August, and early September, there were 8,000 to 10,000 soldiers encamped on Van Skyke Island, including surrounding this home and everything else. And that's what they were all doing, drilling, practicing. So at that point, the Van Skykes really owned the home. They owned it until the 40s, going through the 40s. But as you see the house today, where you're sitting, this is all original. So the only thing that has been changed is that a different hardwood floor was put over the original wide board. But everything as you see it, the generals came and went. The family actually went up to the attic, let them have the second floor so that they could do their work. And that's our claim to fame.
And why here, necessarily?
You know, we don't know why here. I mean, the Van Skyke family was so prominent, and they also gave $10,000 in gold to aid the fact that they were right here along the river, you know, so people could get to it easily with the confluence of everything. We feel that's the reason why. Jack, maybe you know more as to really why?
It was above Albany.
Yes.
I think there was a certain amount of independence being a little further north. And I think opportunities were available, but they were a little bit cheaper because it was more dangerous. The further you went north, the closer you were getting to French Canada and less than friendly Native Americans. And so this was a good place for an investment, and yet you still had access to the river.
So I knew Jack would know.
Access to the river was critical everywhere. I mean, the roads you had washed out in the spring. You were better off to travel sometimes with sleighs, and that continued right up to the early 1800s. So that river access was very important, and that opened up everything to you.
Right. And maybe just a little bit on the DAR and its relationship with the building and its job today?
We were very lucky. The DAR tenets are education, historic preservation, and patriotism. And so in 2000, when this went on the market, it was owned by the Canistrari family. When it went on the market, our members got together and knew the significance of it and just felt that it was a place that, as DAR, we could try to purchase it and restore it.
There's also the Zandri family, actually.
Zandri?
Zandri was married into Canistrari. And Canistrari, when his mother died, his father had a place here in this Van Skyke Island, a very successful automotive mechanics business. He actually lived here as a young boy with his father when he was 14. And when we had to work out an arrangement, Ron had to go hands off.
Oh, yes, he did.
Because he
Yes,
had
it was
lived
Ron's
here.
aunt and uncle, Ron Canistrari's aunt and uncle. Yes, but it was thanks to the Parks and Rec that we were able to get a large portion of the money to pay for it. And then, and the reason, it was like it was kismet, because it went on the market and everybody looked at it, but it wasn't hooked to, it didn't have its own water, it didn't have its own sewer, you know, line that was hooked to the city. And so for anybody trying to get a mortgage, they couldn't do it. So we were very, it kind of saved it for us. So in August 2001 is when we took purchase of it, ownership. And then we've just been loving it ever since.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. And this is I guess technically the second of our sort of off-campus meetings, but the first in a building of historical significance that's related to our mission. So thank you for having us. Should we take attendance?
Yes, Jeff, brother,
Here.
Joe, here, Paul,
Here.
Sandy?
Here.
Jack?
Here.
Maeve?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
Mark? Here. And I believe only Dr. Dorsey is not here, so Professor Dorsey. All right, second would be the public comment or public communications, and there is no new public communications.
Okay.
After that would be subcommittees, which I don't believe have met since.
Well, yeah, actually we did. The Ways and Means or budget or whatever we're calling it.
Yes,
Yes,
it's
we
the last one, yes.
we did meet, and happily, the mission of that group, we think is, at least at first blush, has been successful. The county, the purpose of that meeting was to prepare a communication to the county executive and his budget people, making a request for funding for the next fiscal year, which we kind of broke it down and had some good input from the committee. We sent that communication to the budget director, Dave Riley, and in the executive budget that was released yesterday, our request was included. So that's good. It was 60,000. And you said there might be a little bit of housekeeping that might be.
Yeah, we'll have to rearrange it because originally we sort of envisioned some personnel, and the county specifically lines out all its personnel, so we might have to, have the money moved around a little bit to accommodate.
Okay.
Jeff, can you give my budget familiarities at state level, powerful executive, and kind of go there? Can you give a quick primer on the county budget negotiation process, kind of the mechanics of that?
Sure, it goes.
Relative to the expectations, this ending up in the final budget.
Yeah, I think, cutting to the chase, I don't imagine that having the executive having included it in his executive budget, I can't imagine that the legislature would see fit to take it out, right? I was actually planning that, not that the executive would have been not interested in including, but just as a matter of timeliness. We were kind of tardy, but that didn't seem to.
Yeah, I think to your question, up the hill in the state, as you know, the executive includes a lot of aspirational type material in our budget. On the county level, more or less anything that's in the executive budget is going to be in the final budget. Barring some
What you
sort
see
of
is what you
extreme-
get.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And procedurally, there will now be a series of hearings, subject matter hearings on the budget, and then I think in the first part of December is when, or is it late November?
Late November, the legislature will do its changes.
Okay,
and
legislative changes, then approve it, or
in
vote on it
December, yeah.
in December.
And it's a January 1 fiscal year?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank
Is
you.
the budget online? The proposed budget?
Yeah, I saw it this morning. Yeah.
And Patrick emailed it to us too.
Okay.
No, I mean, just
Oh, just-
to,
oh, okay.
yeah. I'll send that around to everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then before the meeting started, we just had a bit of chatter about, where in the budget or where in this sort of the scheme of county operations will those funds go? Where do we sort of lie? I think it's currently, you said it's in the legislature.
Yeah.
And we're going to see if we can't get that moved into the new and sort of growing Department of Economic Development under Kevin O'Connor, which is where the historian line item is. And I think it's just as a matter of subject matter, I think it makes a lot of sense because the county tourism, heritage tourism, all those sort of burgeoning topics and opportunities will fall under that group, and I think that's where we will want to be. I think that's the most appropriate place. I think it's the most the safest place for us actually to be going forward.
Is there any kind of, because I mostly deal with grants, is there any kind of reporting that we want to keep up to date so that at the end of the year, when it comes time to fund us again, is that something that's difficult, or is it more?
Yeah, I mean, my experience is pretty limited to just like purchasing and requisitions, that kind of thing, and I am keeping track of that, and I think I want to talk about that whole business, but.
I think that's part of our job and our jobs, right? Certainly my job to make sure the executive's office knows, and Jack's job to make sure the executive knows what we're doing, you know, that it is in fact money well spent. And Mark is the executive's appointee on this. So those of you who were appointed from a particular political patron, so to speak, you know, I would definitely encourage you to stay in communication and let them know, you know, that we are active, we are ambitious, and you know, again, I see this as I guess it's not seed, it's more, I guess, Series A. We got seed money. This is sort of Series A, but it's, I think, much more to come, hopefully. I don't know for sure, but I do think probably one of the most persuasive lines of argument in the communication was the comparison to what we are asking for relative to Saratoga and Dutchess and surrounding counties. Right? You know, Saratoga's great. If we just swim in Saratoga's wake, we'll we'll have a very robust. They have billboards now. I saw billboards.
Wow.
Jeff, I missed the budget meeting a few weeks ago. Jeff, did you guys discuss at all our hopes and dreams in terms of what we might need to sustain ourselves over the next 5 or 6 years, or are we still just?
Not in the
Have
5 or
that
6 year
discussion?
context. We did. I think we reminded the executive that we are, you know, a long-term entity, but we didn't want to, you know, scare them off with, you know, big numbers over a long period of time. So we kept it confined to the 1 year. But we outlined the sort of the pillars. I think that's the term we've been using of our area of sort of themes, and then the specific, relatively specific areas within those themes that we would be looking for funding, how we would spend the money over the next year. And Maeve's input and Professor Dorsey's input was, and others was very helpful in sort of framing that up, I think, successfully. So we'll see where we go from there. We still have the budget from this year, this calendar year, which was originally 7,000.
15,000.
Oh, 15,000. Oh, good. So we might want to, this being October, I know we've spent some from that, but we might want to, maybe the Ways and Means Committee should make a point to get together again in the next couple weeks, because we don't want to use it. We don't want to use it, don't use it and lose it scenario. So we might want to gather that committee together again to figure out what amongst our various proposed activities is the one that we should bring forward to apply the current year's funds towards. If anyone has any thoughts on that now.
Do you want me to sort of talk about what I've already put in for?
Yes, please.
So, sort of based on everything you sent me, we've put in for customized tent for outdoor tabling opportunities. Obviously, literally a physical table, a couple folding chairs, customized tablecloth with the commission's logo on it. About 2,000 commission stickers so far. Obviously, the county's working on reimbursing the DAR for the dinner. I think that's it for now, but between all those customized items, I think, and the dinner, I think we're probably looking at about $2,800 out the door so far. So,
Good, that's helpful.
oh, and also a, like a 13-star flag, just to,
What do you need?
yeah.
Betsy Ross or that. Never been.
And a fife and a drum.
Yeah.
Powdered wigs for all of us.
Exactly, of course.
Jeff, did you discuss other means by which we will be trying to raise money and funds?
We mentioned that we would be looking to leverage whatever the county expended with private donations and, you know, potential grant requests, what have you. So, but nothing specific.
Can this entity, we have web presence through the Convention Bureau, but I'm just thinking in terms of public donations, people who might want to donate to whatever the committee is doing. Is there a facility for that?
Yeah, so we were talking about that at the last meeting, because when this all was done, you know, Discover Albany has the grant program through Community Foundation, and so we sort of wrote that into it, but as we've sort of been learning more and seeing what other destinations do, I think we are interested in potentially a Friends or something else, so I think there's a separate meeting with Discover Albany, and so just to kind of, I think we have to just define that a little better, because I do think, especially now with this new funding, you know, we're probably gonna be looking at grants for the community. We want people to be able to donate, so I do think we have to have a deeper conversation with Jill Delaney, our president, to just kind of tease that out, because to your point, I think that's gonna be really important, but I don't know if that would go to the Community Foundation. I don't know if that makes as much sense. I don't know, you might know better, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think we just wanted to get it done and ready, but I think we need to tease that out better.
Yeah, as I recall at our last meeting, coming from the conference in Saratoga, we mentioned that there were a couple of the other county commissions had sort of Friends or sort of a not-for-profit ally that served that function, and we did discuss that we would, you know, in some, we said, you know, we think we have other mechanisms to actually process it, but going into the new year, it's probably a good idea to look into a sort of a separate standalone function. The other corollary to that was that, not necessarily in the financial context, but the other commission, or some of the other commissions tended to be more comprised of sort of the official entities within those various counties as their actual members of the commission. We've taken a different approach, which I think frankly is the better approach of using more sort of civic organizations and citizen involvement. But I think there is some benefit to having the actual, you know, either elected or administrative entities within the county, you know, participate in some form or fashion. So we did also mention at the last meeting some discussion of, you know, going into the new year, we might want to set up sort of an advisory council or something of that respect, just so that we can formalize the process of making sure that, you know, those that need to know what we're doing and what we'd like to do, right? You know, not to get overly bureaucratic, but I do think that that's and they can always say, no, I can't make that meeting, but better to reach out and have a mechanism by which they can be involved, and, you know, just sort of have them think that we've run off and, you know, we're doing our own little thing with their money, right?
As the county historian, having been there now for a little over a year, it's an easy job in many ways because we have some very well-defined organizations in each of the 9 towns of Albany County. We have organizations, we have historic homes, we have all kinds of people involved. Now we're one more somewhere in there. And I like to see, what I worry about is competition where one is really good at web pages and the other one doesn't even have one. And I like the idea of being comprehensive and county-wide. And I like the idea also if we have Discover Albany involved in it, because economic development, you're not picking one government over another government and so on. You have one government above the other governments, etc. And I think that's something we should really look at in the next couple of months. See how Jill Delaney feels about it, and a centralized approach that would bring us into them and bring some of these other groups who intend to reach the historians and find out what they're doing. I'm wondering also if maybe a questionnaire could be put that would be sent to all these different organizations. And I would take that responsibility of finding it out. What I'd love to be able to do is to get a graduate student who could get credit So, because you're gonna need somebody to do that type of thing. But if we had some way that a form could be sent out, and to get the enthusiasm, we would do it as the American Revolution 250th, and say, you know, this is a new era, you guys are doing a great job. How do you feel over the next several years, do you feel that your community would like to involve? One might say, we'd like a speaker, we always wanted an archaeological dig, or we wish that we could support a certain festival, etc., and get a wider publicity. We'd give them a number of options and some blanks that they could fill in, and then it would come in centrally. And then it would be, how do you communicate? Do you have a mailing list? Yes or no? Are you online? Yes or no? How many times a year do you usually have a quarterly meeting, a monthly meeting, etc.? Because I think that inventory should be put together in this year. And I think that should be my job, because I'm obligated to give an annual report. And other than telling you where I gave a few speeches, because very rarely does anybody call the county historian, although I did have a cold case murder person. You know, didn't know where to go. I spent over an hour with this guy on the cold case, and he met with the Albany police yesterday. I'll find out 1957, after baby Moses now. People are very conscious of that, but a lot of these people are doing absolutely a superb job. And basically, it doesn't necessarily go off. People have a problem in the colony, they go to colony, and they wind up with Franklin, who's the ultimate profession for that, and so on. But I'd like to get an inventory.
Absolutely.
This is what we've already done. I am extremely disappointed that the city of Albany did not recognize the 400th anniversary of Fort Orange. They're going through the motions, there will be something there, but comparing that to the way we did it in 1924, to the way we did things in 1976, certainly the way for the Duncan Charter for the 300th anniversary.
A missed opportunity for sure.
It's a missed opportunity. There's also a problem going, there's going to be a competition, and I'm invited to go to a meeting at Waterville Historical, I think it's next week, and for Waterville, Cohoes, etc. They're saying, well, we know what the celebration is, of course, and of course the reason is the Erie Canal. And you already have people involved. The Erie Canal won't open until 25, but the Champlain Canal is already open in 1823, and they're already into it. It's Stillwater in place, of course, any place in Saratoga County, they're already into it. But I think with that one exception, there's going to be an overlap going on, and it's a different generation, different kind of things. I think we need to find out where we are and let people know that we're not competition or superfluous.
So Jack, if I understand what this inventory, you think the actual questionnaire would be devised by a graduate student? And
Well, I do it and see if I can get a graduate student. and
Okay.
do that.
Okay.
It's not my area of expertise, computers.
and then you would be the sort of the repository of the responses?
I would ask that we do it under the name of the, maybe your name is the chairman, and I as the county historian,
Yep.
and say, we have a very exciting year coming up, and we want to find out where you are and how you can help this celebration and your community, and how can we help you?
They, I did have a conversation with the Siena Vista students, so they're undergrad. They generally partner with nonprofits, but I wonder if we could go through DAR. And they said they're looking for capacity building programs. And
Okay.
that was something that they said, you know, data collection, questionnaires, that could also be a route, that they have to do it anyway, so.
We had one of Jen Dorsey's grad students, they actually did a lot of research. So to have support from the DAR, certainly, we need to go that route.
Yeah.
We can do that.
Well, I'd like to make a motion then to, in the name of the commission, to authorize county historian McEnany to communicate to the local historical societies and other institutional players for the purposes of disseminating a questionnaire to establish an ongoing inventory of activities and interests. And that's it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
If I could just amend that, perhaps also in the communication, we make a point to tell them about our meetings and that, that we met here, we'll be meeting at the Normanville and invite them to host us. A little aggressive, but, it's right, that we want to get out and be out and about in the community.
Lunches and then.
Yeah, exactly. Put it on, I like turkey.
I wanted to make a note about the website, and I might have said it last meeting, or I don't remember which it was, but, Discover Albany, we use a company called Simple View, and sort of the down and dirty, which might be what we have now, is like they'll make a website, but it's not a clean URL, it's like, albany.org/250 something. But as people upload their events, it goes to that website and, so long as they tag it as Revolutionary War, which is fine, but it doesn't look as branded as like what we're doing right now for the Halloween events, where we, and this was grant funded, but I think it was $4,000 that Simple View then created kind of its own branded albanyhalloween.com that the community is very much responding to, because when we did it for Halloween last year, people were like, oh, this is just Discover Albany, it didn't feel as exciting. So we do have that mechanism to do, Albany 250 or however we want to do it, it just costs, like the 4,000 or something. I don't know that we need to do it right now, I just wanted to put that in people's brains.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, piggybacking off Jack's idea, and Jeff brought this up to me a few weeks ago, and I don't know how many different towns and municipalities we'll all represent here, but it's probably important that we each reach out to individually a meeting. Jeff and I would like to meet with Peter Barber, because we're from Gilmore, and talk to, whether it's Bethlehem, Colony, introduce ourselves to the town historians, the town supervisors, explain what we're doing, what our plans are, and how can they help us, how can we help them? And again, I don't know how many different municipalities we represent here.
That's a good idea, and I think we should do it as individual commission members, right? We don't need to, in fact, it's more effective that way, right? If for
That's
you
what I
to
meant.
talk to the Colony person, for you to talk to the Queens person, right?
And our sub-community, committee we met,
Dr. Sy.
and I'm sorry I haven't followed up, we started kind of narrowing that down by our regions. I know you gave us a list, but yeah, I think that's a great.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt,
Yeah.
but I think if I understand you correctly, Mike, to actually the political leadership, not necessarily just the historian, but the.
Right, he's kind of doing, we need to talk to the political leadership of the different towns and municipalities. Who do we represent? We've got Queens, we've got Guilderland, Colony, perfect.
I'll claim nods too.
Cohoes, good.
I'm just gonna schedule a meeting with the mayor to actually talk to them
Perfect.
about what we're doing.
Perfect.
They can-
So
And again,
Bethlehem-
consider yourself empowered to speak on behalf of the commission.
If we're doing that, do we want to kind of put together, like a little talking points type, because it's, I
You want to be
presume,
consistent.
yeah, I presume more than just, hey, here's who I am, if you have any questions, let me know, but some sort of, here's the overview, basic message that we want to relay, any asks or offers or whatever it may be.
I'll take it on to maybe provide a sort of a one pager for everybody. Right. I mean, you're not obliged to use it, but if you find it helpful,
Yeah, I like that.
I'll do that. And I do know, the town of Guilderland, in their official capacity, they actually established their own townwide 250 commission last month. And so they just started, and certainly we'd like to encourage that. That's one thing to talk to your supervisors and mayors about is, do we want to do something at the local level?
Supervisor Crummy came to our board meeting, and I just kind of subtly talked about it a little bit as I reported to our board, so I could see him kind of look up and listen, so, for our colony folks, he's at least heard of it so far, so.
Well, he was just at our state conference, which was at the Desmond a week and a half ago, and he was there, and
Okay,
we all peppered him with.
okay.
My job's done.
Well, and if I could ask too, as we do that, and in fact, I would ask, I'd almost encourage, I can't require, but that we actually do that. And if you can let us know, or let Patrick know, you know, that it's in motion, then that will, we will know where the holes are, that we'll have to address, you know, I think, you know, Bethlehem, I don't think we have anyone in Bethlehem.
I'm town of Bethlehem technically.
Okay, well, there you go, you've got Bethlehem now too, if you don't mind. But there will be, you know, a minority number of jurisdictions that we don't cover, but we don't want to overlook, so then we'd have to address, you know, whether it's me or you or whoever, because.
One of the reasons we're moving around too reinforces that this is not just the city of Albany.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not
right.
just
That's
the-
huge.
Yeah.
You know, it's a subliminal message that really scores.
Yeah. I'd offer to take Bern as well, but I don't think Bern even has a town government anymore, so.
But I'm
Yeah.
close to Stemple is the town
It's the
historian.
historian.
Yeah.
Burn underground or burn?
The resistance.
Their rent work out to
Yeah. Calico
Calico.
Indians and.
So just a question, are we, as we're doing all of this circular things, are we still trying to focus and have our one main focus be on the Black Regiment and the Battle of Normanstow?
Yes, but I think, and I think this was outlined in the budget request, is, you know, both thematic, but also, you know, sort of year by year. And I've been thinking about this, I think we've all sort of spoken about this collectively, but your question is a good opportunity to sort of perhaps firm it up. It's obvious that sort of the opportunities that have been both presented to us by outside entities, i.e. the tall ships, Ken Burns, which we'll get into, or the ones that just sort of are obvious, like the Battle of the Normanstow, whatever. They seem to fit sort of a year-by-year agenda, right? If we do what is available to us with the tall ships, that's going to be a big production, and that will probably be our thing for 2026, right? The Battle of the Normanstow and the African American Regiment is, and all the other things on the sort of the home front relative to the Turning Point in Saratoga, that's 2027, right? We don't have to do it all the way, but then that leads us, we've got a couple of years on the up to the, you know, the Tory skirmishes and the things in this Mohawk Valley that was later on in the war. So I think that's the way I'm thinking of it, is we have sort of these opportunities and these primary, if not exclusive, activities on a year-by-year basis. Of course, that leads a hole or an opportunity for 2025, right? There is no, you know, the Ken Burns visit, but I think that's in terms of a project for us to manage. It's unclear as to what our actual role will be there, and fairly modest, I think. So there is an open sort of blank slate for 2025. I have a couple of ideas of my own, but so I guess what I'm saying is, if we'd like to take on a major focus project in 2025, you know, the table is open for
I
that.
just wanted to show you and you were all there, this is the pen that I designed for the Lafayette. I don't think you got one, did you get one?
I did.
Okay,
Wonderful.
all right, so what I did, just proactively, I created a pen
Nice.
Oh, that's
for
cool.
the 1st Regiment. So if you pass this around, I work with Team Crafters, it is all USA made, they're made in Burlington, Vermont. But it's off of this design that I had created, and this design goes back
5 pins to Lexi's state project for CAR. But this is something that we could do to promote that, or even if we wanted to sell them, or if we had donors, if we wanted to give a gift because they were giving us a donation. So that's something that we could easily produce for that specific thing, if we're gonna go in that way. So
Right.
I just took it upon myself to do that. I
That's
did a little
great. Glad you
research, I
did.
know it's August 11th, and there again, it's
If it would look anything like this, it would be perfect.
It's going to, oh, you'll see it when it comes
And
to.
next month, if our schedules still coincide, Aaron Meyer will be our speaker at the, what are we meeting?
Aaron Mayer.
Normanville.
Aaron Mayer.
So, well, I'm sorry, what did I say?
Aaron Mayer.
Aaron Mayer.
You said Meyer.
What did I say, I'm sorry. So bring that, because he'll,
Yeah, and my thinking is if we have money in this year's budget that we need to spend, we could be purchasing these and have them all set, done,
I like that.
click it off the thing.
I like that.
And as you can tell from coming to the event, that's my specialty, that's what I do.
Yeah.
So I envision a dinner or, you know, all of these things that we could do right there by Normanskill.
Yeah.
If we could pull it off, and I think we could make it a super, super thing.
Definitely.
that's awesome.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And one of the purposes of, sort of piggybacking, one of the purposes of seeking a meeting, Mark and I, with Supervisor Barber in Gilderland, is to kind of assess his interest and ability to have the town do something in terms of purchasing and operating some sort of memorial or park or something at that site. Right? Someone has to do it, right? It should be
Because
done.
that could be our event, everything could be turned right
That's-
around that event.
Mhm.
You know,
That's
the
right.
country club, what is that country club that's right there? The little one,
It's not there,
it's, yeah, I mean.
French's Hollow.
Yes, whatever, you know, we could certainly have an event and get everybody excited about.
Yeah.
Because I think this is one of those untold stories that's
That's
very
awesome.
important to needs to be brought to light.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's my 2 cents.
Well, and I think we might be getting a little granular, but we should have, you know, we did set the, is it the program subcommittee? Is that the title of the other subcommittee?
Presentation.
Presentation and program. I think maybe I'll call a meeting of that subcommittee so that we can sort of. That's ours.
That's ours.
Okay, certainly can be on, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll do that before our next commission meeting, so that we can have a little more sort of granular detail as to what do we want to do in 2025, what do we want to do in 26, what do we want to do in 27, right? And have some.
I would just add on that topic, if you recall, we did commit to some sort of presentation in New Scotland, I think at their December meeting,
Yeah.
so we'll have to have something ready for that.
Okay,
They,
December Historical Society?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. At the time, they suggested maybe having a presentation of how, you know, this commission was put together,
that's what I'm thinking
which is
too.
sort of an interesting idea, so just wanna put that on the radar.
Got a date on
I don't. I'll circulate it around after.
it?
Okay, I think we're sort of in old business still.
Yeah,
I'll just sort of update people, our relationship with Devin Lander, the state historian, is bearing fruit already. He invited me, unfortunately I couldn't participate in a call last week with the regional sort of consortium of groups like ours from Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New York. Like I said, I really regret that I wasn't able to do that, but also he invited us, and I did participate on a call the week before with Saratoga County historian and commission, 250 commission, and the program staff from WMHT, relating to the preparations around Ken Burns' premiere of the American Revolution series that he'll be doing next fall. The show is, I think, going to be airing later in the fall. I think they said late October, November. But Ken Burns is coming to the Capital District in early September. And we'll have at least 3 events. One at the Saratoga Battlefield. Also in the afternoon at a school in Saratoga. And then in that evening, a presentation, and this is all organized by WMHT, a presentation, public presentation, open to the public, they think tentatively at the Egg. But I wonder if that's big enough, I mean,
It's 800, it's just under
it's big enough.
Okay.
Giving a preview of the Revolution show. And we've been invited to, participate in that in whatever way we would like. So we need to be thinking about, what, certainly we'll all go, but if we might be able to do more, for our cause around that activity, because you definitely will elicit a lot of interest. So there's, and specifically, also WMHC is looking to do local programming as a corollary to the national production. And they're in that process now. I've told them, our focus on the home front, which is kind of an overlooked thing, and that would certainly put, I shared our themes, Destination Albany, all that kind of stuff. But I was specifically trying to think, okay, what would be something that would really get a film crew in Albany County as opposed to Saratoga, right? Because Saratoga is definitely going to get its due in the national production, certainly, right? So I think our opportunity actually with WMHT is, well, the big guys are going to be talking about Saratoga. Maybe you want to get even more granular and more local and talk about what was going on at that time in the other areas around here.
I wonder if it was their educator. I'll go back. When I was first hired at Discover Albany, it was like Hamilton Mania, and it was like a mad scramble to create. Then they did the local Hamilton and Albany, like it was a local documentary, which then aired before there was a bigger Hamilton documentary that came out. So I'd have to go digging into like the archives, but yeah, there was a very local production, and it pulled in our partners, and they based a lot of it off of like our little brochure that we made.
Yeah.
So I'll go digging
Okay.
the archives,
Okay.
how that happened.
One idea I didn't share with them, but it's been percolating in my brain since then, is I never really knew, I was not really familiar with how the militia worked. And certainly rereading the stuff on the Battle of Saratoga, how vitally important the militia was, particularly in that battle, right? Yes, it was the Continental troops and it was from Massachusetts, but without the militia, Burgoyne would not have surrendered, because the militia just swarmed, right, and encircled him and proved to be quite effective to their horror and surprise in fighting. But I never knew how I knew, it's the militia, but just, were they soldiers, were they,
Citizen farmers.
citizen farmers that, raised up and then went back home
All of my
and
Massachusetts
harvested and went back up.
ancestors
They were going back and forth all the time, which to me is fascinating. And in the WHT context, that might be something to pitch, because no matter whether they were from Rensselaer County, whether they're from Kinderhook, whether they were from Schoharie, and they were from all those places, whether they were from Burnt Hills, whatever, they were all called the Albany County Militia.
Right.
Right? So we get the moniker, even though, these other areas. But the Albany County, what is today the Albany County, the Rensselaer and Coast regiments were the core, right? They were the ones that actually were embedded within the Continental General Glover's troops. So we can take, we sort of stood out, our Albany County people stood out. So that might be something to sort of pitch to WMHT, is, because it is very granular and very local, which is the type of thing they look for, so.
And they flummoxed the redcoats because they did not fight using the conventional rules and means of warfare.
Yeah.
It was guerrilla warfare back before guerrilla warfare became the redcoats didn't know how to, they were angry because they weren't fighting the way they should be, and they couldn't deal with it.
And they were hunters.
Yeah.
And the deer didn't tend to line up straight.
I can't remember if we discussed this last time, but do we know if the documentary or the piece that Bernson's doing touches on the Roman scale?
No, I would highly doubt it.
Okay. I mean, then I'm always a fan of checking off multiple boxes through, you know, one action. You know, maybe, maybe that's a pitch. You know, doing a little, you know, I don't even know the amount of time we're thinking, you know, but a piece that focuses on that. We could then use that as some of the, you know, some of our long-lasting educational materials. You know, whether that is, you know, at events that we do, or with schools. You know, different than Saratoga, where the battlefields are kind of, you know, set up in a historical way. You know, maybe we could then use, you know, some of our kind of grant type ideas with the, you know, Albany County and Capital Region kind of creative minds, you know, in a graphic sense to kind of recreate some of the scenes and imagery from there to interplay against, you know, kind of an on-site camera crew now saying, this is where it was. You know, because that, as we've talked, that's a little known and unique story that is, you know, hyper local for us in Albany County. And can be kind of the, you know, here's where you're gonna see with Ken Burns' piece, here's something that's not included that is very relevant to, you know, where you are today.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I think maybe for the program subcommittee meeting, maybe I'll take the initiative and do, I don't know if this syllabus is the right word, but sort of a pitch around weaving in these themes that we've talked about and making, you know, specifically in this context, WMHT production team, the sort of the target of the pitch, but I think it would serve other purposes as well.
How finished is the film?
Ken Burns's? They didn't say. They didn't
It
say.
would be nice to ask them which African-American regiment do you have included?
Yep.
Also, I wonder about this whole encampment in the island is a predecessor, I guess, to that. You know, people camped here, people training, you know, eating their lunch, whatever, you know.
And 8 to 12,000.
Yeah,
is
yeah.
a skirmish group.
Right, it's a lot of people, and it's a big deal.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're taking back,
Yeah.
remind me, I've assigned myself some specific tasks that I don't want to overlook, so. Good stuff. So let's see, the Ken Burns, the Regional Consortium. I think that's it for old business. Was there any?
John, the new business.
Bear with me. I don't have any specific items under new business. We sort of touched on some of the things, but,
I've got some updates.
okay, please, Jack.
One that would be interested in this, and this is something that happens in 75. I don't know how well it works out for us in 75 because it happens in December of 75. And it's the Knox Trail Commemorative Meeting. I've been going to this now 3 out of 4 months in a row. It's held up in Boston Spa in the courthouse. And Lauren Roberts is just unbelievable. And if you're a municipal historian, you are just overwhelmed when you see the resources that she has put together and the county of Saratoga has put together because of their function on cultural history. And the Knox Trail, a couple of things interesting. We were mentioning the militia. And with the militia and the, I forget what it was, 59 cannons that are brought down from Ticonderoga, the image that we have around, one of the things we may want to do is move the location of the one that we have diagonally across from Memorial Hospital, which faces backwards if you're on the road, which is good, so you won't get killed when you pull over, but also it's blocked by whatever cars parked in front of it. So that's one of the things we might do. But it also shows the oxen, of which if 0.5% of them were oxen, they were mainly horses. Most of the horses in New York State were supplied by contacts with Philip Schuyler. Everybody in North Country, that was the guy who was the one you'd go to. And the image of the number of people that were involved in bringing that, and as you know, was to take the captured cannon, some of left over from the French and Indian War, I'm sure, and managed to get them to Dorchester Heights overlooking Boston, and that's the reason why we took over Boston, because from that vantage point, they don't even bother, we'll just leave. And that's what evacuation day is over in Massachusetts, and it's a legal holiday. Some of it's called St. Patrick's Day, but it just happens to be the same time. And anyway, you saw what we thought. I think everybody here was impressed with what we did for Lafayette.
Absolutely.
And you remember, those people were involved, but once again, this will have the Masons involved in it too. The way Lafayette was done, it had to be on the same day. And so whatever day he arrived in Albany, that's the day we do Albany, and then all the way through. Well, this is the way they're doing that. So in Warren County, the timeline is to be celebrated in December 12th. And they'll take the cannons going down the length of Lake George. They'd love to be able to have some symbolic cannons and reenactors and so on and so forth, bring it down to Lake George battlefield state park. It's a tremendous work. The name of John DeDuzo up there was originally one of the from there, they pass it on the 13th, and it goes over to Washington, Saratoga. They come down Washington, county side, they switch over, and by the 14th, they bring it here to Albany. Then there's a long void, and I went to the Schuyler Mansion, and I thought, here's somebody would be involved in it, because eventually what happens with Knox, he stays with the Schuyler Mansion. A little bit of trivia. How many people wore uniforms in that entire endeavor?
Probably just him.
Two, him and his brother. These are, and the people who should be told about this, is the Teamsters Union. I think they might be possible to give a grant for something like this. And no, these were the local guys who were recruited. Some of them, I'm sure, belonged to the militia. That isn't why they were doing it. They were doing it as private Teamsters. And Schuyler was arranging to make sure there was horses to be changed when necessary and so on. There's a void at that point. The first thing is they have a reenactor they'll have, who is very realistic, just like we saw with Lafayette. But the fact of the matter is, on the 14th, he wasn't here. He stayed up in Saratoga, and he was, and he came down around Christmas time, either the day before or after, and then a little bit later, in January, he started. So I don't know how that would benefit us when we don't have the reenactor. On the other hand, what did go on? We crossed the Mohawk River, and there's a place right here, which I'm sure took a lot of them. This would be the welcome to today's Albany County. We could then, so I brought in the Schuyler Mansion, because they're on both sides, as you know, there's a trailer across the river. And at the last meeting was a Zoom. So the very well-organized group that's doing it for Massachusetts. Again, overly organized, run by the Masonic Lodge. They have a whole commission out there for the 250th commission. We just appointed ours over the summer just before. And they even have people involved from Maine, because that's where Knox retired, and he has his retirement home. So they're involved in it too, they're heavy into it, they're in great shape. There will be a handoff from New York to Massachusetts on January 10th. And it'll go from through Nassau and over to Great Valley. I called and talked to the historian from Columbia County, because that's where we're going to be going now. And his organization is fantastic, but they don't seem to be reaching out in any direction to another county. Kathleen Sheehan, the city and county historian for Troy, locally, has been attending a couple of these, not for the last couple of years, into the Gilded Age business. But at some point, we should get involved in it.
Yes.
We should get involved as a commission. And you already have me as the observer there, or liaison. And I haven't said this to them, but the thing is that Schuyler Mansion, actually, unlike the Schuyler Mansion up in, for the Saratoga, is closed and unheated. And they have a real problem doing anything in the winter. They won't even go there, even with the cannons going right down the road. They just shut right down.
The Albany one or
Yeah,
the?
the Saratoga.
Saratoga.
Oh, okay.
So then I'm saying, oh, they'll probably do the same thing. No, the Albany one comes to life, and they have a big, obviously,
12th night,
cold and
yeah.
cold, so they have a big 12th night thing, et cetera, et cetera. And we know he was here then. He was a guest of the Schuyler's, probably his brother as well, and who knows who else. So,
It's probably actually better though in January than doing something right before Christmas.
right, and
Yeah.
on the other hand, you've got people saying, well, are you gonna be accurate to the, well, we'll figure out what day they left on.
Mhm.
And we can have two things. If we could have a welcoming, so we could stay true to the obligation of December 14th. That could be a role for the Skype Mansion.
Yep.
And then everybody's got their thing, personal in every other way. And then when January comes, I don't know quite the day, and who's your friend at the Schuyler Mansion?
Jesse?
Yeah, Jesse.
Yeah.
Jesse did it. We did it the last one on Zoom, listening to all
Yeah.
of Massachusetts.
And they're just for, they did their 12th night last year, so January 6th is usually, so they actually got it there. But, you know, but I think the 10th, we're not overcrowding their schedule like
But
this.
they'd already have to be where they need to be on the 10th, so
Oh.
4 days prior
No,
might be right, right?
No, I have to figure out, I don't know how many days it took. The one thing I know is that we managed to drop one of the cannons in the Hudson River, but we got it back.
Okay.
So Jesse is looking at the calendar, and the
Oh, great.
calendar is online and so on, and find out an historically appropriate way to do it. Hopefully it'll be something that can be in conjunction with that they normally.
Oh,
So
that would be great.
So that could be a good thing, and we could make it one of our activities. And for a lot of people who think the American Revolution starts in July 4th of '76,
Mhm.
the 76 people will be thrilled.
Right.
And it'll be one of a number of good kickoffs. So
So you're proposing a welcome here sometime in December?
I'm suspecting, I haven't mentioned it to them, but I'm thinking, is there a way we can say, yes, I like the idea of saying, that's what you need, we can do that. But it also means we may also be able to get that exit from the city of Albany as well. And by that time, the stockade line will make sense because it will be the right stockade line.
Working on it.
I know. So I wanted you to know that and tell you
That's great.
where we are, and I didn't think there'd be any problems with it. And
Okay.
this,
Well,
Can I see the agenda for the Knox? Just
Yeah.
what they did?
yeah,
Thank you.
Could I make another motion that we empower County Historian McEnany on behalf of the commission to express our interest in participating, specifically with perhaps a welcome
For the entire duration
of
Knox and
Knox's
Cannon's here.
time in Albany. And see if that, if there's
Yeah.
interest on their part.
Yeah, so moved.
Oh, they would, no, basically, East County does its own thing.
Oh, okay,
And,
okay.
Motion's made and seconded.
Did you second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good, well, let's,
and
the color and
what is the problem? How do we involve young people? They love graphic novels. This is a guy named Alex Portal. Alex Portal works for the Glens Falls Herald, Glens Falls Post. That's what's that.
Star.
Post-Star. And he is given an offer to Saratoga County, and of course Saratoga has grants from Stewart's Ice Cream, the Dake family, and from the Solomon Convention, so on and so forth. And they are looking at producing a comic. And the comic would be relatively cheap, and it could be passed out to grade schools and things like that. And I think it's something, it's not what you think it is. They're doing it, this is a proposal to do it for the cannons. And it's gonna be geared overwhelmingly by the northern party there, and they're already in the works on it. But if this works out, we'll know more in a couple of weeks. I think we could work out something that would get a graphic novel. But let me tell you what the novel is. The novel is about a teenage boy. And the teenage boy, the one that they want to do in the whole revolution, they'd be able to plug into it, which would be a lot cheaper for everybody. And that he hears these things, and he hears people complaining of everything from, the insensitivity of the British government, how tough it is to be a merchant, to make a living, and so on and so forth, the lack of respect, all kinds of things. And then it progresses at a point where it turns into, and you meet Tories who are saying, these people kept the French from coming in here and so on, we gotta be loyal to them, and do all the problems that we know of the American Revolution. I think no resolution right now. I'd like to find out a little bit more. I've talked to the artists and find out what it would cost to come up with something that you could hand out to grade schools.
maybe
Just on a
a specific
side-
tool around the Norman Skill.
Just on a side
Yeah.
note too, the Van Dyke Elementary School is right here in our backyard.
Yeah.
And we draw them in on many of our activities. So something like the cannons all coming down, the students could all, we could certainly pull in the students.
These are also easy to get corporate support for,
Yeah.
because there's an element of permanence to it, because it's not the type of thing the kid throws out.
No.
Well, if you can find more,
I had a question. So there are more horses than oxen, right?
Yes, what happened is the artist
The artist.
did the bas relief. He correctly has this incredible thing, and we're all fascinated by oxen.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think Ticonderoga is going to work out oxen doing, and they're going to do it inaccurately the week before, because they're already having a big Ticonderoga, I won't say is non-cooperative, but they charge for everything they do of that nature. So a lot of people are looking for volunteers as much as possible. And, but most of it was done by horses.
So your representation in the drawing there is featuring oxen. And I guess I'm wondering, should be corrected or whatever.
No, it's corrected,
Yeah.
it's It's true.
Yeah.
You didn't ask the question which day. It's the day that they had the oxen.
I like that. It's, I'm not a creative mind, and so the story of it, with others, but kind of like a Forrest Gump approach, where you create a character and then use that character to just kind of tell the
Be everywhere.
story. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so-
he's asking questions.
Yeah, and so obviously this isn't a real person, it would be a real scenario, but allow this random, boy, kid to kind of be at all of these notable, Albany County Revolutionary War era, events, stories, lead-ups, all that kind of, the boy is the crossroads, right?
Yeah,
And it's all kind of
Yeah.
goes,
I like that.
And what's gonna happen, my father goes to these militia meetings and they don't do anything, they haven't had a war since, 18 or 17, something such, and why is he still doing it? Why are they suddenly wanting to do it again?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Good stuff. Did anybody else have any?
I have, we don't have an action
New
item
business.
with it, but I sent out the American Tapestry Program, which looks like it is, National Endowment for the Arts. They reached out back in February to us, to Discover Albany, before we had a commission, to say, is there, it's traveling nationally. I have to look it up, but if you wanna look up, it's the American Tapestry. And they're doing live weaving events in historic sites. I guess for New York, we're collaborating with Fraunces Tavern and Museum to generate imagery for the New York panel. The panel will depict the Birch trials held at the tavern, depicting an important moment for Black loyalists. And so they're going to these different locations. They're trying to connect with Schuyler Mansion to see if they can do the live weaving there. So there's not much to do, so 2025 is when they're looking, so just more to come on that,
That'd be great.
yeah. But then if Schuyler Mansion can't do it, maybe reaching out for alternate locations.
Okay.
That's something you can get the Bar Association to undermine.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Something like that,
Yeah.
And I did have, actually, like I said, I didn't have any, two things. I'd like the sort of permission of the group to make two sort of overtures. One to the Stockbridge Muncie Mohican Nation, which is headquartered now in Wisconsin, is a very small but very active and quite wealthy by virtue of their Wisconsin casinos, Native American tribe, and of course they are the successor to the tribe that occupied Albany County until they were displaced by the Mohawks. But interestingly enough, amongst the regional tribes, they were one of the two that sided with the Patriots.
And Oneida being the other.
Oneida being the other. And they're just sort of like history's hard luck Indian tribe. I mean, James Fenimore Cooper got a lot wrong, but he was right at the last of the they still exist, so he was wrong but they always seem to be on the short end of the stick historically. And again, they sided with the Patriots, but they received no recognition or benefit for that. But they do have they actually have an office here. It's actually in Williamstown, Mass now, it wasn't Troy. And they have a resident cultural historian. And I thought we should reach out to them. Just to discuss what they may be thinking, whether there might be, because it's sort of a pet peeve of mine, sort of our Iroquois-centric notion of understanding of Native American history, and we just sort of forget about the Mohicans, even though this was their land for centuries and centuries.
There's a native Indian spring that we own that's right over by our cemetery that is marked with a historic mark.
Is that right?
It's still there, yes,
Okay.
yes.
The other reach out that I'd like to do is to the author Russell Shorto, who we saw in Albany. He was in Albany a couple months ago, to see if he has any interest or ideas relative to a way that we can perhaps cast a particular spotlight on the Dutch contribution to American liberty. It's one of his themes, actually, in his book, Island in the Center of the World, not necessarily focused on the revolution, but more sort of as laying the groundwork for many of the sort of principles that we think of as fundamentally American. even though, you know.
He talks to Charlie Gehring all the time.
Exactly, well, and that's the other thing too, is Charlie Gehring is, of course, the head of the New Netherland Project.
Yeah,
He's a treasure.
yeah.
He's getting on in years, and you know, we should somehow tap into his interest and involvement while he's still, you know, active.
Yeah.
So I'd like to make that over, again, with no specific agenda, no specific thing in mind, but just to see if there's, you know, if there might be some interest. Russell Shorto, in addition to being an amazing author, he also has he's sort of very involved in like cross political, cultural relations between the United States and the Netherlands.
Mhm.
Of course, I think the Netherlands was the first country to actually recognize the United States in 1781, I think. So there's some stuff to work with there.
Before, I mean, other than France.
Well, France, of course,
Yeah.
sided with us, but I think official diplomatic recognition first came from the Netherlands. So those are two communications that I'll be making on behalf of the commission, if no one has any objections.
That's great.
Go for it.
What's that?
Go for it.
Go for it, good. Okay,
I got another one. I got two others.
sure.
When Burgoyne came down as a prisoner, and he entered just before the city gate. And the city gate was roughly Orange Street. He was on Van Rensselaer land in the suburbs, which is the Quackenbush House. And some people feel the Quackenbush House is 1735, which I disagree with. The land was owned continuously by the Quackenbush family, Quackenbush and Lansing, same family, in 1683. When I said, how come we don't have, why we don't have the dendrochronology testing? Well, it's a brick house. Well,
It's got wood in it.
actually, it's got wood in it, but also it's built with nogging. So if you're actually down in the basement, you have the original. You know, you always get a question of something flooring, but you wouldn't. I don't push that issue because Historic Albany has an obligation to restore what they've been calling the largest or the oldest house in the city of Albany. If they had said built in the city of Albany, they'd both be the oldest house, no problem. But the house has nothing now. The guy who was there wanted an old English pub. It's essentially gutted underneath. I did save it through Mayor Corning. A funny story, going down there watching him show up on a Saturday morning in May. We had no bottom floor, mud in the bottom, dead rat inside. And Corning showed up at 10 o'clock in the morning in a pearl gray suit because the season had changed and your dark suits were put aside. And I thought, I had worked for the mayor less than a month and I thought, there goes my job. He's gonna come out of here and he's gonna look like he was cleaning the cellar. He went up on a ladder, he walked around, he agreed that it was a Dutch house and the rest was history. And the city saved it from being destroyed. There's no sign on it. We should take something that's not controversial, which the tradition, and they have a new thing, I think it's Pendleton, who's the one that makes the signs.
Oh, Pomeroy.
Pomeroy has a new thing now where they put folklore and tradition type of thing, so the people who are really, everybody likes to think that the Indian took a swipe at the railing in the Pembroke mansion or the Sky mansion, and nobody believes it, but all the kids remember being told it and putting their finger in and so on. So it's a folklore thing, and you don't disappear and take all the flesh and blood out of it. But somewhere we should get that, I think very likely, before he went through that gate. And that gate was a city block, a short city block away. I believe the tradition would be, this was a colonel's house, it's his family home. Before you go in there, there's people there that your people killed their people. You gotta walk all the way through to the Schuyler Mansion. I suspect that he did stop in. I suspect he had more than lemonade, because that must have been a tough walk. And that's the end of the Battle of Saratoga for him, and then he, of course, he becomes, so does Rita Sell, they become guests at Schuyler Mansion, and treated very nicely, but something in the Quackenbush house should be recognized, understanding the sensitive issue that we don't want to undermine the oldest house in the city of Albany
Right.
until they're done with whatever they're doing.
I will say the Pomeroy Foundation, I've not had direct experience with them, but from what I hear, they are very exacting
They are.
in
They are.
their,
Yes.
proof.
We just put a marker, our chapter just worked with Pomeroy Foundation to mark the burial grounds up in Lake George. It's the first 250 marker that's ever been placed in New York State, we did that. And they are stickler.
Yeah.
Yes, they're not into folklore. You have so many lines, and every line must be specific, and every word must be, but they'll do it.
But they have another one that says folklore.
But even that is exacting, because I looked at it from
Yeah,
the ghost
yeah.
tour stuff, you have to have that folklore written by the date,
Yes, you do.
what is the,
You do.
Well,
But your
their
ghost
standards.
stories are all,
But it's
they're all.
rougher
Sure.
because that ties into the 250, and what they're having right now is 250 markers to mark the 250. So you should look into it, because it is.
Yeah, if you can find out,
Okay.
kind of put a framework around it, what are you proposing, what might it cost?
Okay.
I agree that it's definitely, if there's no marker in front of the Quackenbush.
No, and it's
And
also,
that's important, because
And-
that's what they want.
and
So they have
speaking
marked.
of the tourism activities and economic development, we now have that entrance of the flyway to go over the.
Yeah,
old
Skyway
railway,
and Clinton
the
Market.
Skyway.
Yeah. Okay, did you have one other? Is that it?
Yes, one final one, I apologize. It's in Bethlehem. I was invited to the Bethlehem Historical Society, just by the general public. And I went in and it was on a general called, or not a general, a revolutionary hero by the name of Selkirk. And when Selkirk settled, that's where that community of Selkirk is, which is right by the town line, right near both Queens, and it's in Bethlehem. It was a fascinating story. The family is still there. Several members were there at the Bethlehem Public Library. And he's a rather unusual person. The regiment that he joined, he was a Scotsman, born in Scotland, family moved here, settled in Albany. He joined a company a regiment that did not belong to any state. And it's called, and there's a whole book on it, the company is called Congress's Own. Congress's Own took the people who were all the Canadians that guessed wrong when we were capturing Montreal and Trois-Rivières, and we were about to get Quebec, and they joined. And when they joined, and they were excommunicated by the Catholic Church for joining, and a lot of things went on, and then it was realized between the smallpox that wiped out our army up at Quebec, and the fleet that was going to be coming down, all the Americans bailed out. And when they bailed out, they brought these French-speaking people down there, and they gave them their own regiment. That regiment fought through the entire war. Why is it important? Because the man who dictated his memoirs in the early 1800s, the founder, was in that regiment. Why he was there, I don't know. But we have lots of diaries from officers and educated people. We do not have a good diary from an enlisted man. He never became an officer. He describes, he criticizes some of the officers. He does all the complaints, all the things. So the family owns it, it's out in Rochester, and they're in the process of translating it. And if that could be put together, it is Albany County, Selkirk is Albany County, he's ours. I think we should do something, see if we can get it published.
Okay,
And I'll talk to Bethlehem Historical about it.
great,
And I don't have.
good stuff. All right, there being no other business, we have a motion to adjourn. And again, thanks to our hosts.
Yes, thank you.
We are. Oh, we need a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
And our next meeting is at Normanville, right?
Yes.
November,
And the directions are,
you take State Farm Road, Route 155,
yeah,
south from Route 20 in Guilderland, heading towards Voorheesville.
yep,
You pass the Farnsworth Middle School on your left, and on your right, there is Knott Road, N-O-T-T. Take that right, and about maybe 3/4 of a mile on the right-hand side is, you can't miss it, it's the big historic, it's at 1 Normanvale Lane.
It's shorter than 3/4 of a mile.
Shorter than, okay, then half a mile, maybe. It's really the only
Normanville
historic,
Lane.
it's, yeah, you can't miss the
Where is
house. It's Guilderland, I think.
Mhm.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it's a Guilderland, I think.
Norman Skill Lane or Norman?
Norman Vale.
That's,
And the date was,
yeah, I'm sorry.
I forget. No, this is November.
I have November 12th in my calendar.
That sounds right.
That sounds right.
yep, that's right, yep.
11.
Patrick, will you reach out to Aaron to confirm, or should I do that, or
You should probably do that just because you have the
Okay.
pre-existing relationship.
I'll do that?
Name of the house?
Norman Vale.
No, what,
The owner?
yeah, now what did you call the house?
It's called Norman Vale is the name of the house.
Oh, Normanville's the name of the house?
Yep,
On Normanville Lane.
on Norman Vale.
Normanville Lane.
And whose was it?
It was Lieutenant Governor and General John Taylor,
Oh, okay.
T-A-Y-L-E-R.
Yep.
Who was the Commissary General of the Northern Army in the Revolution. And I can't commit necessarily, but I think we probably will have lunch, since we're having a program.
Good deal.
Great. Thank you all.